Welcome to Lutra TV. My name is Ash, and we are here today to talk to Iain Rabbits, who's one of our principal process engineers, about a project we did for a local council. The project was about mainly assessing the competencies of the council staff in terms of operating and maintaining the water and wastewater treatment plants and the network systems. So welcome, Iain.
Thank you. Well, good to be here.
Yeah. So just as just for the introduction of the project, what was the objective? Why did you do this project?
So it came out of a piece of work we did for the council that looked at what the requirements of the 2021 Water Services Act was. And part of that was making sure that the council had a handle on its capability and its capacity to deliver water and wastewater services. Mm-hmm. So one of the things that came out was that they didn't know what their capacity and capability was, and they wanted to find out.
And so how did you actually go about it? Like what was the methodology that you adopted? Did you have a framework or a template? And
yeah, so I think there was a few things there. The first was setting the scene why we're doing this. Because obviously if you want to engage with operations and with staff all the way through, it's not got to be a witch hunt. Yep. So it was very much geared around what are the gaps in capability and capacity and how do we fill them?
Yeah.
So it was done with a very positive attitude. And so we went through and we interviewed everybody from operators all the way through to the CE of the council, mm-hmm. Because they've all got a responsibility under that act.
Yep. And
we tried to identify where the gaps were. But we also talked to people who weren't directly part of the water team. So IT, asset management, all those sorts of people as well within the council to get a feel for where their gaps were. And we were kind of looking for gross areas of gap rather than specific details. Mm-hmm. And we literally spoke with everybody all the way through. And because the interviews were anonymous, well, we knew who we were speaking to, but we didn't record that. People were very, very candid about what they felt, what they understood. And the gaps they felt that were there. So it was a fantastic exercise to go through.
Yeah. It would be pretty difficult to talk. I mean, did you get frank and honest opinions?
Oh yes. And I mean, some of them we could have a conversation with, but they were actually very difficult to write into a report, because we've got to bear in mind that a lot of what we were finding was opinions of people.
Yeah.
So you have to temper that with, where's this person sitting? What's their space? What mindset are they in? Are they mm-hmm. happy with what they're doing? And the biggest gaps I think that we found were around, as I say, experience and knowledge. What we did find was that everybody was really committed to safe mm-hmm. drinking water and in protecting the environment. Mm-hmm. So even people without the necessarily skills, they wanted to have the skills, they wanted to mm-hmm. have the knowledge. Mm. And so this was a really useful exercise because it sort of identified those gaps and it said, well, let's get this person the training, the support. So it's not just training, it's support knowledge around that they need, the person they can ring up and ask, I've got a problem, how do I do this? Mm-hmm. And it really helped identify those areas.
Yeah.
So it was really good.
Yeah. So I think, so the themes that you would have probably found was around training and resources.
Yeah, predominantly it was around, there was a lot of themes around lack of resources, a lack of expertise, training, gaps in training. There was also gaps going up towards the CEO level about transparency in information, transparency in compliance, making sure that the people at the top understood what the implications of this report coming through saying, oh, we haven't complied. And there's like, well, so what? There was a bit of lack of transparency there. So I think we needed, there was those sorts of common themes. And there were things, when we spoke to the infrastructure manager there, and they said, well, okay, what do we do to make it better? Yeah. So there was a really positive outcome of the whole thing. It wasn't sort of, right, who are we going to shoot now? It was very much a positive, how do we make it better?
Yeah. So the question in my mind is, these are the common themes that we see across the country. And why would another council come to you for the similar report? Because they know the themes that are common.
Because under the Act, they have to have some assessment of what their competence is. Calls it competency. I like to think of it as capacity and capability, because, because somebody doesn't have the knowledge and doesn't have the experience to do something, doesn't make them incapable. It means that there's or support to do something. It means that they need. We need to change what we do. And we need to upskill the whole industry. That's for sure. But each individual council has their own specific issues, and they have their own level of how far out are they from the capacity. How many people do they actually need? I was talking to council the other day where there's 2 people who run the entire water and wastewater system, and it's kind of like, well, that's probably too few. But that's the reality for some people, and to have that report underneath that they can take to the senior management of the council and say, this is actually what an independent assessment's made of it. It might be the ability to redirect funding back into water and wastewater for the next couple of years anyway. So I mean, it's a pretty good record of your own council and what gaps you have. And I mean, it'll be different for every council where the gaps are, and there was 1 or 2 surprises in there for people, but generally I think people were aware that these were going to be the gaps, but it's nice to have that confirmed.
Oh, great. Seems like a very interesting project, Iain.
I enjoyed it.
Absolutely. No, thank you. Thanks for your insight there.
Thank you.
Cheers.